in just a couple of years, we have seen 7 mass shootings involving people of transgender nature or who are confused in their gender. 7
I saw what
in
you
just
tweeted.
the last couple of years.
I see your list of 7.
Inordinately high. So
I see your
please,
list of 7. Two of them are Sebastian and Mr. Gorka.
Stick with the facts and not CNN's pseudo-facts.
We can't.
Forgive me if I don't go with CNN stats, okay? CNN has proven itself to be wholly inaccurate in all kinds of things for the last 10 years, perpetrators of the Russia hoax, and that we didn't have an open border. So please forgive me if I don't take your stats for granted.
CNN's desperate attempt to ignore the truth is laughable. Brianna Keilar pulls out irrelevant gun violence data to cover up the rise in transgender violence. Gorka isn't buying it. He calls out the media's manipulation and exposes how CNN is protecting transgender criminals to push a false narrative. They're more interested in maintaining their agenda than facing the real issue.
When you're looking at the U.S. Secret Service National Threat Assessment Center, looking at 172 mass attacks in the U.S. between 2016 and 2020, 96% were non-trans men. So I know you're focusing on this shooter being trans. The shooter was trans, and that is certainly of note. But are you missing the bigger picture here when you zero in on that instead of more broadly these school shooters as an epidemic, and you perhaps miss the through line that connects them all?
Well, no, because your facts obfuscate 2 things. You are using data based upon the predominant gun violence, which is gang-on-gang violence with 0 ideological content. If you remove all of that, the gang violence on the streets of Chicago, LA, Detroit, then you come down to a much smaller data set. So it's like those who say, you know, gun violence in America causes so many deaths, and then fail to note that the majority of the stats they are using refer to also suicides by gun, which of course is not what we are talking about here today. So let's concentrate on mass shootings at schools, specifically Christian or Catholic schools. Then the data set is wholly different. So don't conflate different data sets just to make a political point.
Gorka tears down CNN's fabricated narrative. Keilar tries to minimize the role of transgender ideology in these attacks, but Gorka is laser focused on the truth. These aren't just random shootings, they're targeted ideological attacks. CNN is actively protecting dangerous ideologies by ignoring these connections. Gorka exposes their false facts and media manipulation.
Let's narrow it down then, because by CNN's count, when you look at 32 school shootings since 2020, in which you have 4 or more people who have been killed, so these are the larger school shootings, only 3 of 32 of those shootings were committed by transgender shooters.
Yeah, forgive me if I don't go with CNN stats, okay? CNN has proven itself to be wholly inaccurate in all kinds of things for the last 10 years, perpetrators of the Russia hoax, and that we didn't have an open border. So please forgive me if I don't take your stats for granted.
All right, it's simple math. 2 of 32
No, it's
shootings.
not. It's distortions. You are distorting the facts. Let me be clear. In just a couple of years, we have seen 7 mass shootings involving people of transgender nature or who are confused in their gender. 7
I saw what
in
you
just
tweeted.
the last couple of years.
I see your list of 7.
That is inordinately high. So
I see your list of 7. 2 of them are Sebastian and Mr. Gorka.
Stick with the facts and not CNN's pseudo-facts.
We can't stick with your facts because they're not accurate. In fact, in 2 of them, one of the ones you quoted.
Let's talk about CNN's reputation for accuracy.
In one of the ones in which you posted, there was no evidence that he was trans.
Right.
In another, the individual was known within his family by male pronouns and used anti-LGBT
you have an agenda.
rhetoric. No, well, let me ask you this. You've made it clear, and this is not going to change. You think transgender people are the problem here. So what specifically do you think should be done?
No. When did I say that?
All right, you clearly think
when did I say that,
you
Brianna?
think it's a pattern?
You've
tweeted about it.
You just created live fake news. You just did it right in front of the
Mr. Gorka,
small
what do you
viewership
think
you
should be
have,
done
okay?
here? You have zeroed in on the fact, on what you see is a problem, what you claim is a problem. What do you want to do about it? What do you want to do about this problem you see?
I have noticed a disturbing. Do you think it's a problem that individuals are targeting little children at Catholic schools. Do you think that's something we should ignore?
Of course, I think that's a problem.
Thank you.
In recent years, the issue of school shootings has reached a boiling point, with innocent children becoming the tragic victims of ideological-driven violence. However, what the media often fails to address is the emerging involvement of transgender individuals in these acts of violence. This pattern is not an isolated incident, it's a disturbing trend that we've seen across multiple school shootings, raising questions about what is truly behind this violence and how the media is handling it. Historically, school shootings have been committed by individuals with various backgrounds, but there is an undeniable connection emerging between transgender individuals and mass shootings, a fact the mainstream media, particularly CNN, seems intent on ignoring. We've seen an alarming increase in transgender individuals being involved in violent attacks, yet the media has refused to openly address this issue in any meaningful way. Rather than taking a hard, honest look at the dangerous ideologies that fuel this violence, outlets like CNN choose to cover up the truth, using misleading statistics and deflecting blame to protect specific groups from scrutiny. CNN's behavior is particularly egregious when we consider their ongoing attempts to shield perpetrators based on their gender identity. The liberal agenda has become so deeply entrenched in their editorial approach that they willfully refuse to hold transgender criminals accountable for their actions. This isn't just negligence, it's a clear effort to protect the narrative, one that seeks to undermine and delegitimize those who speak out against it, especially prominent figures like President Donald Trump. CNN's agenda is plain to see. By casting a blind eye to transgender involvement in violence, they undermine the truth while furthering their divisive political agenda. Their reluctance to criticize transgender criminals exposes their deep-rooted bias and the irresponsibility with which they approach sensitive issues. The question we need to ask is, why is the legacy media so intent on protecting these criminals? Is it because they fear the backlash from certain political factions, or is it because they see an opportunity to further their own ideological goals? CNN's role in this has been clear. They push a narrative that completely ignores the ideological content behind these attacks. The media constantly skews the facts to diminish the importance of gender identity in mass violence, attempting to downplay the real reasons why these shootings occur. Rather than discussing the mental health issues, the early warning signs, or the ideological motivations behind these shooters, CNN works hard to avoid addressing the larger issues that may make some uncomfortable, but are undeniably important for the safety and security of future generations. The coverage of the Minneapolis school shooting is a perfect example of this media manipulation. The perpetrator, a transgender individual, was responsible for a mass shooting targeting children, a situation that should have sparked national outrage and demand for real solutions. Instead, CNN chose to push their own narrative, downplaying the individual's transgender identity and focusing on irrelevant data to distract from the real issue. This avoidance of uncomfortable truths is dangerous. By doing so, they fail to acknowledge the pattern of transgender individuals being involved in violent acts and refuse to address the ideological motivations that may be behind it. This tendency to protect criminals for the sake of an ideological agenda does a disservice to everyone, particularly the victims of these crimes. If we don't address the root causes of these attacks, including the role of gender identity, we will never be able to prevent future tragedies. At the heart of this issue lies a fundamental truth. Criminals, regardless of their gender identity, should be held accountable for their actions. The priority must be on punishing those responsible for these heinous acts, not protecting them based on their gender identity. It is crucial that we separate the issues of gender identity from the criminal behavior displayed by these individuals. If someone, regardless of whether they are transgender or cisgender, engages in mass violence, they must be held responsible for their actions. The criminal justice system should not be biased in favor of any group, and we should not allow the legacy media or political correctness to shield violent criminals from facing the consequences of their actions. Our primary focus must be on ensuring that criminals, regardless of gender, face justice. The transgender community, like any other, should not be exempt from punishment if one of its members commits a crime. We must stand firm in the belief that violence of any kind is unacceptable and that the perpetrators should be treated accordingly under the law. This is a matter of justice, safety, and accountability, not identity politics or media bias. As a society, we cannot allow legacy media outlets like CNN to continue their narrative of denying responsibility and ignoring the truth. They have repeatedly shown themselves to be complicit in fostering a culture that protects criminals for political gain. It's time for all of us to demand that the media stop protecting criminals and start holding them accountable for their actions, regardless of their gender identity. In conclusion, we must focus on the real problem holding criminals accountable, ensuring that those who commit violent acts, including transgender individuals, are punished. The media must stop shielding criminals based on their identity and instead focus on the bigger issue at hand, justice for the victims and protection for our children. The agenda-driven nature of legacy media must not come at the expense of truth, and it's time to demand real accountability.